In my last video, I talked about how the adoption process all started, and I mentioned that it was the start, and it was a long, long time ago. It took a long time for us to progress, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. We started the process in the fall of 2008, and normally they tell you to expect a 6-month process for adopting from Liberia. And my wife, who, if any of you know her, is incredibly tenacious, she said, I'll get this thing done very fast. And so she got the paperwork going, and we had everything ready to go by November of 2008. So we sent in all the paperwork to the adoption agency, who then would work with the governments to get it approved. And they, within a month, had turned it around and said, okay, the boys are now matched to you, meaning the Liberian government has confirmed that you're adopting these boys, and we can go ahead and start the process of bringing them home. And we were elated. We thought, hey, we'll have these kids home, by February. And so anyway, it was only about 3 weeks later. It was actually January 26th of 2009. The president of Liberia stood up to give her annual State of the Union speech. And in part of that speech, she said, we are now ceasing all international adoptions. And she placed a legal moratorium on all international adoptions of healthy kids. Now, obviously, she had someone's best interest in mind, and we like to think it was all the kids. She wanted to eliminate any risk of international child trafficking, but it impacted literally hundreds of thousands of kids and thousands, I'm sure, families that were looking to adopt. So, we had great faith. We had felt great about the decision, and we thought, we'll be able to resolve this pretty quickly. We got in touch with the adoption agency and said, okay, what should we expect? What's going to happen here? And they said, I don't know, give us a little bit more time to figure this out, and we'll let you know. So they went to work on it. They said, call us back in a week. So we called back in a week, and then a week turned into a month turned into 2 months, and it just went on and on and on. In fact, it was about a year and a half later, so May of 2010, Beth and I finally sat down. I mean, we had written letters to the boys and sent them pictures and tried to keep them encouraged and motivated to come home and start living life with us. Anyway, so Beth and I sat down and talked. I mean, over a period of days, we talked multiple times about it, and we had to come to terms with the fact that the adoption might not happen. We had put so much effort into making it happen, and after a year and a half, nothing had changed. And so we kind of emotionally decided that we were going to not move on, but go on with our life with the hopes that someday we could bring them home. We thought, well, it's just not the time. Some good news is, in the meanwhile, we had gotten a handle on Grace's treatments and how to deal with her medical condition, and so that helped our life quite a bit. We actually decided to try to have more of our own kids, and our little boy Doug was born during that time. And anyway, so we went on with life. I had started a business and was trying to grow that business and dealing with all the challenges that come from that. And Beth had a young baby to raise at home during the day, and other kids to deal with, of course. But it always, I think, at least for me, left a void in my life. Here I had 2 boys. My sons were stuck in Western Africa, and I had no way of bringing them home. Anyway, it was in summer of 2011, that Beth was on Facebook and saw one of the other families that was trying to adopt, said, hey, we got approval, we're bringing our kids home. So she immediately reached out to him And we got in touch with all of the old people again, trying to figure out how we could bring our kids home. And we got in contact with one woman who had a friend who was previously the Attorney General of Liberia. And she asked her friend to look into the case, into our case. And her friend looked into it and said, what are you guys waiting for? The Liberian adoption for Thomas and Surprise is already complete. You could have picked him up anytime that the U.S. government would approve. And so we got in touch with the U.S. government, and we had to deal with them saying, well, Liberia says you can't have them. And we worked through all of those issues. The agency contacted us and said, would you still be interested in adopting Surprise and Thomas? And my wife texted me that. And I immediately responded, absolutely. And she was like, well, are you sure? And I said, yeah, of course I'm sure. And so I think she was trying to protect herself emotionally from starting down the path and then having the opportunity taken away from us again. But we got right back on it and refiled all the paperwork. And they kept telling us, yep, a few more weeks. And finally, in December of 2011, they said, okay, you guys can come out. There's only one person that we have to make sure is here when you're here, and that person went on Christmas break. And so it was the first week in the first week in January before we finally got the final go-ahead. And they said, go ahead and travel. So on January 7th of this year, 2012, I got on a plane, flew out to Liberia. I got out there as fast as I could and met the boys and had an amazing, life-changing experience there in Liberia. And I look forward to telling you about that in the next video.